So last video we discussed the possibility of Arnold being the one we're playing as in Help Wanted 2. Today I want to explain some of why that might matter in the larger context of Five Nights at Freddy's. See, if Arnold has seen all of these different animatronics in Help Wanted 2, I think it's important to discuss why he would be seeing these particular animatronics that he's seeing. While some of the levels being shown from Security Breach seem easy enough to explain, it's a bit odd that we're also seeing characters from the past as well, Circus Baby arguably being one of the most important. It's not just that Circus Baby shows up, but that she talks directly to us, as if she's familiar with us. So let's talk about Arnold and how he might connect to the rest of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Now this theory is going to have a lot more visual connections to help us try and piece lore together, essentially lore that's currently behind the scenes, for lack of a better word. I'm essentially using a lot of old school style of FNAF theorizing for this video, directly connecting specific visuals and then assigning them to specific characters. Just know I'm as skeptical as you probably will be going through this theory, so be sure to let me know what you think after watching. Last video I talked about some of the merch in the van that Arnold drives for Fazbear and Secret of the Mimic, which seems to connect directly back to Help Wanted 2, but there was something else in that van that greatly intrigued me. So think back with me to before Secret of the Mimic released. As a fun way to tease the game, some FNAF YouTubers received the Spring Bonnie bobblehead. I was incredibly intrigued by this before the game released. And now that we have Secret of the Mimic, I want to note that this also shows up in Arnold's van. And there are a few reasons why I found this so interesting. But before I'm able to fully explain why, I have to start by talking about Cassie in Five Nights at Freddy's ruin. As Cassie makes her way through the ruined Pizzaplex, she finds various vintage Fazbear collectibles that remind her explicitly of her dad. We learn that Cassie's dad is a huge FNAF fan and loved the old merch. I can't remember if I briefly touched on the idea that Arnold is Cassie's dad in my last video or not, but until further notice I currently have sneaking suspicions that Cassie's dad is in fact Arnold. I may as well address the elephant in the room while I'm here, and there's actually two of them. One is the deleted dialogue from Secret of the Mimic where Arnold mentions having a kid. I try my best not to use these kinds of things as evidence in my theories, and so I will not be using that for or against my theory today. The second thing to address here is the potential time gap conflict that a lot of people have with Cassie's dad being too old to have had a kid at this point. I definitely get it. So like if Arnold is an adult in Secret of the Mimic, which is supposedly 1979, and even if he's like 20 years old during this game, Security Breach takes place well after the MCI and has to take place after FNAF 6. I know a lot of people play Security Breach sometime in 2030 or later, in which case, essentially Cassie's dad can't be Arnold, he'd be too old to have a kid by this point. If you're one of the ones that thinks that this is the case, then trust me, I see you. You are not being ignored. But to give a bit of my own reasoning for why I don't mind the potential age conflict though, I don't think Security Breach takes place that far into the future. There's still a great deal of speculation as to when these events take place, and there doesn't seem to be a general agreement on any particular year. On the one hand, we have telephones and walkie-talkies in Security Breach with the date July 4th, 2019 showing on them. While these are likely stock assets, the date is somewhat backed up by a calendar with a healthy head on it with July 4th circled red, which to me means this calendar was intentionally placed here for some reason or other. I'm also not quick to dismiss stock assets as having relevance to a story, as the whole point of having stock assets in the first place is to use or modify them however you see fit to create your game. But the bigger issue I have with this potential timeline date is that in FNAF Ruin, when Cassie wanders through the Pizzaplex, we find the same phones in the same spot, still with the same date. So either there's some crazy time loop we don't know about going on, the chip in Cassie's head has messed with her mind and is showing her this intentionally, or will forgot about this. So all that said, I just can't seem to settle on a date for Security Breach. I've seen really solid arguments for the events taking place in 2025, as well as past 2030. Narratively, as I currently see the story, it makes more sense to me that the events aren't set way into the future, as our player in Help Wanted 2 seems to be connected to these events from the past as well as the modern day. But it's also possible that Help Wanted 2 is showing us all this for a different reason completely. However, for my theory today, I think what we see in Help Wanted 2 is connected to our player. So I'm not trying to say I'm right or this is like a solid timeline, because it's not. The timeline has always been a heavily debated topic in Five Nights at Freddy's, and the Five Nights at Freddy's movies have not helped with that at all. Looking at you, 1982. For me though, I'm stacking this theory off of my last video, where I discussed that Arnold is who we play as in Help Wanted 2, and so he needs to be alive in some sense. But to finish addressing this potential conflict, you also have to consider that Cassie could be adopted, or dare I even bring it up, but we did just play through a game where there's the first instance of an actual robot child. I don't want to go there in this video, I really don't. But back to our main topic. So as far as this Cassie's dad being Arnold discussion goes, though, we have additional things to talk about. Because what else is important is in Five Nights at Freddy's Ruin, Cassie says that her dad collected old Fazbear merch and that Bonnie was his favorite character. And since I know that someone is going to bring up the Bonnie mask we find in Help Wanted 2 and tie in that connection directly to the Bonnie bully from FNAF 4, for me, there are quite a few reasons this could be familiar to our player in the game. Personally, I don't think this has to mean that they are the Bonnie bully. In fact, I would argue that if they were disturbed by that day, if they were right there, why would they keep a mask from such a miserable experience? Maybe he's like repressing some tragic memory and the game is forcing him to confront it again. That could be a pretty cool plot twist. I will give you that. That's actually really cool. I'm really not opposed to the idea of the Bonnie bully theory at all. I'm just not fully convinced yet, especially since I just released a Help Wanted 2 video going over how Arnold is the one playing through the game. But I apologize, I keep going slightly off track. I actually really wanted to talk about this golden Bonnie bobblehead next, but we had a few things we had to kind of cover first, so let's continue now. This particular bobblehead doesn't show up in the other Fazbear van that we see at the manor, only Arnold's van. It also happens to be a form of Bonnie, who is Cassie's dad's favorite. But what I also find interesting is that in the Escape the Pizzaplex book, Cassie stumbles across a Bonnie keychain she's never seen before. It looks old and well used. It also looks identical in style to the golden bobblehead we see in Secret of the Mimic. I absolutely think this Bonnie keychain is connected to Cassie's dad. It's not the first time Cassie's found merch of her dad's favorite character, Bonnie. The keychain holds a key inside of it that when used, opens a door Cassie can only access when she goes behind Glamrock Bonnie's stage. Once she opens the door, Cassie really doesn't find anything useful, but the book does make sure to mention that there is not only nothing useful for her, the room just contained tables, chairs, and some beat-up cardboard cutouts of Bonnie. And I see this as directly tying us back to Cassie's dad as well, since she mentions in Ruin that dad wouldn't tell me why they replaced Bonnie, and this seems very much connected to that whole idea. And judging by the fact that Bonnie is his favorite, I can't help but connect this style of collectible directly back to Arnold as well. And if Arnold is Cassie's dad, this is the perfect connection tying Arnold all the way from Secret of the Mimic to the Pizzaplex and through Ruin, which lines up super neatly with Help Wanted 2 if Arnold is indeed our player. But to further defend the idea of Cassie's dad being Arnold, if Arnold is who we're playing as in Help Wanted 2, I find it extra interesting that Carnie tells us,
"Now, you look like you got kids. Win a prize for the little one."
We look like we have kids. This is an incredibly random observation to be presented with if it doesn't hold some meaning or insight into our player. At the moment, I find the reason for this Carnie dialogue being here at all is for us to connect the dots that Cassie's dad is who we play as in Help Wanted 2, and for me it's furthermore Arnold. But the theory doesn't end there. See, Arnold isn't just a random Fazbear employee. If Arnold had any hand in Fazbear's success in claiming the Mimic Endo or safely securing the premises from the Mimic's destruction, it doesn't seem out of the picture to me that him and William Afton came across one another at some point after the events of Secret of the Mimic. Pure speculation, of course. But seeing how William was a convincing businessman, gathering employees from Murray's to Fazbear, I really don't think it'd take a lot of smooth talking to convince Arnold to continue helping out at Fazbear's. Or, you know, thinly veiled threats. That's kind of more the Fazbear way now that I think about it. But anyway, I guess my question then is, what happens immediately after Secret of the Mimic? How much does William know that Arnold knows? I think it'd be really cool if we find out for sure which ending happens, as each ending has a perfect way to continue the story. Trust me though, I didn't bring this up for no reason, this whole hypothetical interaction between Arnold and William. Just keep listening. But that intriguing thought aside, I want to tie a few of the loose ends of Help Wanted 2 together that are really bugging me. Since Circus Baby shows up in Help Wanted 2, if Arnold has never seen her before, why are we being shown this? How does this connect to Arnold? And the reason for this is that Arnold has seen Circus Baby before. He's been down in this bunker before. So let's refresh our memory and head back to Sister Location. As Michael ventures through his second night during the story of Sister Location, Circus Baby's voice confronts him for the first time, and she begins her speech with some rather intriguing information. She says,
"I don't recognize you. You are new. I remember this scenario. However, it's a strange thing to want to do, to come here. I'm curious what events would lead a person to want to spend their nights in a place like this. Willingly. Maybe curiosity, maybe ignorance. There is a space under the desk. Someone before you crafted it into a hiding place, and it worked for him.
There's a lot we can unpack here. First and foremost, she says that someone before Michael was down here, and the hiding space worked for them. I'm sure you see where I'm going with this now. I mean, we know that Arnold has a ton of experience hiding from murderous endos, and if he was down here before, that explains why he's seen Circus Baby in Help Wanted 2. He's been here before. These are characters that Arnold would be familiar with and would have come across. These are events from his own past. It's why Circus Baby tells our player in Help Wanted 2 that
I recognize you.
if Arnold was an employee for William before, it explains why she says this. She also mentions in Sister Location how she's curious how anyone could spend their nights down here willingly, which to me sounds like the last person here before Michael was sent here against their will. Essentially, this could be William telling Arnold that if he doesn't do what he asks, he loses his job. Heck, at this point in the story, who knows what types of threats William could cook up to force his employees to do things. But it could have just been as simple as it is in Secret of the Mimic, where it's like, if you don't do this, you lose your job. As a goofy side note, I can't help but wonder if the reason we're shown these various drinks in Arnold's van is due to the fact that he actually liked the flavors. Specifically what I'm getting at, and don't hate me for this idea, but the fact that there's exotic butter drinks before Sister Location makes me wonder if Arnold actually enjoyed the drink. The connection being that when Michael enters the Sister Location bunker and is able to ask for a gift basket, the reason that Handunit assumes Michael wanted an exotic butter basket is that Handunit thinks that this is Arnold returning to the bunker, creating a hilariously frustrating moment for Michael. I know it's silly, I just had to throw it in there as it did make me wonder what some of the implications of Arnold having worked here in the past might have been. That aside though, this isn't the end of Arnold's story, so we have to tie Arnold to yet another FNAF game as well. So let's talk about Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Many of us just took for granted that we're playing as Michael Afton in FNAF 3, and while I think that's more likely as well, I want to offer two possibilities. One, that Arnold is who we play as in FNAF 3, or two, that he helped set this whole attraction up, arguably with an ulterior motive. After all, we've never received a name for the character of this game. It's all been mainly speculation and process of elimination. But let's go over why I connect him to this game. First, we're again greeted with these same types of bobbleheads from Secret of the Mimic and Escape the Pizzaplex. This is the last time I'll talk about these frickin' bobbleheads, but just look at these figures here on the desk. It's possible that Arnold would bring these to his work the same way he glues a bobblehead on the van in Secret of the Mimic. But it's also possible that these were just found by the guys that discovered Springtrap and all the other stuff for this attraction. This is where I'd like to insert some classic Vrar speculation on Arnold's motivation here. If he's been to the Sister Location bunker and narrowly escapes with his life, I can't help but wonder if maybe he wants to get rid of Afton too, seeing how deadly this guy really is and that he's been murdering children and such. It's possible Arnold didn't know any of that before he went to the bunker. He'd have heard the rumors, sure, but this would be like straight up confirmation. I mean, that may even tie into why the place gets burned down with Afton inside at the end of FNAF 3. And so with that, I wonder if Arnold was originally sent to the bunker to complete whatever it was William wanted Michael to do, to put Elizabeth back together. Pure speculation, of course, but it is interesting that when Michael arrives at the Sister Location and Baby talks to him, she tells him that while she doesn't recognize Michael himself, she does remember this scenario happening before. This is a really strange, specific scenario, so if she's been through this before, I can't help but think that the reason this is said to us is so that we understand that somebody else was sent down here before us, by William, to put Elizabeth back together. But they didn't exactly do what he asked. It's in the same speech that Baby tells us about the previous person that was here before him. Before I get too swept away by my character motive speculation though, we need to talk about the Fazwrench and the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 secret wall code. You may already know why the Fazwrench is important to Arnold if you watched my last video. I'll link it below just in case. But essentially, the Fazwrench, in my humble opinion, is directly connected to Arnold. And the reason I bring that up now is because of the number on the back of this Fazwrench. It's the same number as this wall code we type in during FNAF 3, which I can't help but wonder if this is trying to tell us that Arnold is at least partially connected to FNAF 3. Like realistically, he doesn't even have to be the player of FNAF 3. He could literally be the one that created the secret wall code. I think the fire at the end of this game was intentional, and I think it's quite possible that Arnold either started it or helped with it in order to take out Afton. See, by the time of FNAF 6, when Henry gathers everyone in one place to end the Fazbear legacy, he also mentions something a bit odd.
And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you.
Not intended for you. Henry had someone specific that he wanted to do this job to find this listing. Someone who would share his mindset, someone who would know enough of what's going on to want to help him and apply for this job. As far as I'm concerned, the intended volunteer Henry had in mind was Arnold. So if Arnold tried to end things in FNAF 3, that may have got Henry's attention. Now, I like to very carefully use the FNAF movies to back up my theories if I use them at all, but I feel like in this case it's probably fine going by how little we actually know about Henry, so I just want to give a tiny bit of context into how this may have played out. So judging by how in the FNAF 2 movie Henry keeps tabs on everything Fazbear from the past, I can't help but think that this particular mockery of the past caught his interest as well, and if he kept up with this particular building, or maybe even having a hand in its demise, I can very clearly envision the possibility that he contacted and maybe even knew Arnold from the past. I mean, maybe they worked on this first attempt together, I don't know. But it is really strange that Henry mentions this other vague character that was going to help him in FNAF 6. And so if Arnold was in on Henry's vision to end Fazbear once and for all, that helps make sense of why we see characters like Pig Patch, Scrap Baby, or Lefty show up in Help Wanted 2. If Arnold was helping Henry set up this location in FNAF 6, then revisiting all these characters from his past in Help Wanted 2 would be expected, and it'd honestly be weird if we didn't see some of this stuff showing up. And I think it works really, really well to have this character be Arnold. Like, feel free to say I'm ridiculous for saying this, but I really like this because I don't think it messes up the lore at all. It honestly works just as well with Michael being the employee in FNAF 3 while Arnold is the one who found a good chunk of the merch and brought it to the building. I just think it works really well to have him connected to this game and then ultimately to FNAF 6. By the time of Help Wanted 2, he's once again facing off against a William-connected character, Glitchtrap. It just makes everything kind of come full circle in a really neat way. What do you think though? I know this may not be the most solid theory, there's a decent amount of speculation I had to use here, but I think the fact that Circus Baby speaks to us so specifically is a huge indicator that we came across her before. And there isn't a good chance of that being the case unless our player also went to the sister location bunker. Anyway, that's all for now, but trust me, there's a lot more to go over, so I can't wait to discuss some of that in one of my next videos. Thanks for being here, have a good one.